Hey, this is Greg Mack, the Mack Attack from 1580 KDAY.
Yup.
And I gotta tell you, I know hip hop.
Here it is, the Baco Tunes podcast with Matt Munoz. Audio brought to you by Chain Cone Clark.
You know, it's not every day I get an opportunity to speak one-on-one in studio with a legend of radio, rap, hip-hop, and R&B soul music. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I can keep on going on. Now, he's more than just a luminary. He's the living embodiment of a visionary who had the foresight to recognize that rap and hip-hop were not just a passing fad, but would become a worldwide cultural movement. Probably, the biggest cultural movement around the world today. You all should recognize that by now. Is he the Nostradamus of West Coast contemporary hip radio? Who knows? For all we know, he could be a prophet living in our midst. To answer these questions and more, I am joined in studio by the one, the only, Greg Mack. How you doing, Greg?
I'm good.
You like that?
I could never live up to that introduction. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like the word legend. And let me tell you why. Because every time I see this legend, that legend, they're no longer with us. And so I'm trying to be around.
Okay. So what about luminary? Luminary. Because, Okay, you're a very humble man.
I came out in a top 20 list of black DJs of all time. And it was, 20 really big guys. And I would say about 17 out of that 20 are no longer with us. So I don't like being on those lists.
Okay.
But no, I'm just joking with you.
Yeah, no, but you know what? How can we? I'm sure you've been given your flowers by many people over the years, and when I found out that I was gonna be able to interview you, I would say, well, I know he's been interviewed by some of the biggest journalists. He's we just had the anniversary of hip hop, and I'm sure he's told a lot of these stories over and over before. But I said, but now I get to interview Greg Mack. And it's a name that is synonymous, like I said, with hip-hop, the history of hip-hop, contemporary hit radio. Us being over here on the West Coast, before we decided we're going to do this interview, we had a brief conversation, and I told him, and we're going to get into this interview, but I just want to kind of preface this by saying that, us here in Bakersfield, me growing up in the late 70s and the 80s, when our first introduction to hip-hop was like, Rapper's Delight on the radio. Other than that, you kind of had to seek out, where are we going to find some more Rapper's Delight music? Because it was just like Bakersfield radio was not reflective of the rest of the world. It was just what we heard here, which was a lot of crossover, a lot of different stuff. So we had to seek elsewhere, visiting family in Los Angeles. Little by little, you started hearing about a radio station called KDAY, and then the name Greg Mack became the voice of hip-hop radio. So without further ado, let's just jump into this. Mr. Greg Mack, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit, and of course, we always have to start out with your origins. Where are you originally from?
I'm from a little city named Van Alstyne, population 1,500, right north of Dallas. It is now, like tripled in size. A lot of the Dallas Cowboys live there, which I like. I'm a Cowboys fan. Sorry, boys. Raiders and Niners. But, I started, in radio. My first radio gig was in San Antonio, Texas. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Corpus Christi, Texas, Houston, Texas, finally Los Angeles, which is where in August of 1983, I started the very first ever rap radio station, as some people call it, in the world. And it kind of all began there, me and this DJ that worked for me at that time, Dr. Dre. And so that's kind of where it all took off at.
Okay, but before we get to that, because that is obviously a big chunk of this story, I want to go back to your origins. Now, so you grew up in Texas. What was life like in Texas? What was your upbringing like? Because every, and I will use this term again, every legend has an origin story. What is the origin story of Greg Mack? Let's go back to your childhood and upbringing.
Yeah, I'm a country boy at heart. You know, I love everything about living in the country. A lot of people would be surprised to know that I not only raised pigs and cows and chickens and all of that, but I actually was a member of the Future Farmers of America.
Yeah.
And I entered 2 pigs into the big fair one year, and I won in both categories.
Blue ribbon
championship.
Yeah.
You know, because I like doing it. I had my pigs trained, man. We'd walk down the street, and it was cool. But those were my roots, man. I was a country boy. I loved living in the country, and I still do.
Yeah.
You know, I deal with the city. I can play all different roles. I'm somewhat was naive to certain facets of the city, but hey, I just have fun.
Yeah, country beginnings. Just like myself in McFarland, surrounded by country, work down the fields in the summertime,
Right.
And all that. Okay, well, let's talk about in the house, because that could be a whole other thing. We were talking about your early life, but let's get into like when music entered your life and when you started to kind of gravitate and started to absorb some of those early sounds. What type of music was being played in your house when you were young?
Well, Mom always played Aretha Franklin, Al Green, all of that. She used to criticize me. Why are you listening to that Isley Brothers and Gap Band and all of that? That ain't no music. But, every generation says that to the previous generation. I didn't really listen to music a lot other than when Mom was playing it. I listened to the radio a lot. And I didn't quite understand what it meant, but when I was listening to the radio, instead of singing along, I would actually imitate the DJs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about.
And so I was sitting here, like when a DJ would say something, then I would say it. To me, that was fascinating. I never understood that it meant that I was going to be in radio.
Yeah. Who are some of the radio personalities of that time that they kind of become permanently ingrained in your memory?
Dwayne Dancer. We were actually born on the same day, which is weird, but he was the hottest DJ in Dallas because that's with the market that we would listen out of, KDAY. And
that was what was the format of that? Was it a soul R&B?
Yeah, it was soul R&B. But I always imitated him. I've told him the story. He gets a kick out of it. But that was kind of, who I was locked into. When I did move to San Antonio, there was a black DJ, Sesmo. And so Sesmo was from what we call in the radio that puking era. Well, where they talk like that.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to imitate him. And then when I got my first shot at working at a radio station, he's like, "Oh, you need to cut all that out. That's over with."
Yeah. Okay, so you obviously start finding a little bit of a spark as far as what your aspirations might possibly be, but what were did you always plan on pursuing radio? Was that my goal?
You know what? I never thought about it. I know that when I was in high school, because I was living in San Antonio at that time, my last 2 years of high school, they had a program. It was kind of cool to where if you had at least a B average, you could go and work at a place of business and you would get credit for that B average, even though you weren't going to school. And so I was like, oh, wow, I get to get out of school and you wouldn't get paid, but at least I didn't have to go to school. And so I went and applied and they, I said, well, I want to, work at a law office because that was my original goal. Well, those are all full. Okay, well, secondary, I'd have an interest in being a doctor. So what about hospital?
Yeah.
All that we have left is a radio station. That's the only place, left. And so I says, well, let me go. I didn't know anything about a radio station.
Yeah.
And so I go down there and I get the job. I'm like, oh, cool. Come to find out later, it was affirmative action in play. They needed a black guy to be there, which is fine.
Because you got the talent,
Well, I didn't have the talent then.
Not yet.
I didn't even. But
you had the drive, or something. Something was going on, or maybe you weren't aware. You're young.
Did not know. I didn't know anything about radio. And so my first job was answering the request lines. And I started meeting all these girls. on the phone every day. And I fell in love with radio at that time because of all of the females that I was able to talk to and get to meet. Actually met my first wife through that request line. And
did she win some tickets? I'll take you.
No, she had called me to ask me about a rugby event that we were talking about, and we just got to talking. But that was why I fell in love with it, and it was years later before I fell in love with it for the money, because there was no money. It was you couldn't make a living on it. Put it that way.
So it was like an unpaid internship type thing. Just doing that.
And even when they did start paying, because they did after. The thing with the school, they did give me a job, but it was still, I think back then $6 an hour or something like that.
But you're getting those experiences. Okay, so let me just kind of tap into your upbringing. How many? Did you have other siblings, or was it just you?
No, brother and sister. My brother, he was a big track star for Santa Monica Track Club. He used to run on the team with Carl Lewis and stuff. He won several gold medals, and he represented us in the Olympics. He won a lot of medals. He was really fast. One time he broke a record, and so they gave him a car, a Mercedes, which he gave to me. Yay!
Yeah, nice.
But he, if you just Google him, you'll see he did a lot. And then my sister, the late Stephanie, was the kind of middle of the thing, stayed in trouble.
Was she the protector, or did you guys kind of all had your we got our own thing,
Yeah, she
so I got 5 sisters, and I'm the youngest of 7, so the role of the sister in my life, it's like protector, every defender.
we kind of teamed up, helped each other.
That's good. That's nice. All right, so you get your first introduction to radio. Now you're coming into, let's do a little fast forward. So, I want to know when you became the Mack Attack, because I think that's most of people, especially here in Bakersfield. Like I said, I'm from McFarland, so access to music, to rap, hip hop music, was very, very limited. So when we would get a hold of recordings, you would say, "Hey, this is Greg Mack, the Mack Attack." So we would always say that all the time. Like, "Oh, you think you're the Mack Attack now? You think you're the Mack Attack?" Well, I want to know, who was the Mack Attack, and how did you become the Mack Attack?
That was when I was in Corpus Christi, and my boss at the time, he kind of hinted at, "Call yourself the Mack Attack." Because I was when I first started in radio, I called myself Gregory Mack. He said, "Nah, drop the Gregory, Greg Mack." And then later he said, "Call yourself the Mack Attack." And this was before McDonald's used it, so I should have copyrighted it.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's Greg Mack Attack Mack. And that started in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, that's like one of those ultimate DJ names. Yeah. I mean, it rolls off the tongue, and nobody can get it wrong. I mean, if you... Come on, man. It's easy to say the Mack Attack, Greg Mack, the Mack Attack.
I don't really use it anymore, but back then, every now and then on my syndicated show, I'll say that. But
take a little time and check out the scene. Now I ask, what does it all mean? Remember I said that to see where your head's at. Over and out from your main man, Mack Attack, Mack Attack, Mack Attack, Mack Attack.
What does it all mean?
yeah.
I think the more you fight it, the more people are going to want to call you the Mack Attack. Sorry,
Yeah. Well,
it's all done with respect and affection, because it is such a part of, myself as a journalist, as a fan of music. I think, our kind of upbringings, the things that we have in common from being in the country and all these things. It's like radio and music meant so much to our lives, because it was how we dream. Our dreams became bigger, thinking in bigger cities. And one of these days I'll get out of the country, and I was thinking LA. So, KDAY was one of those stations. Like what we would do is when we went to visit family, we took blank cassettes, and of course we recorded the shows, and then we brought it back, dubbed it. So yeah, I mean, when you're talking about trademarking the Mack Attack, if you own the publishing to all those bootleg tapes out there circulating with your voice on it.
Let's not even go there.
2 weeks ago, a friend of mine to recite to get fresh rhyme with coded rhymes so full of tricks. They all derive from 976, 976, 7070. It's the get fresh line that's full of soul.
976 7070. 976-7070.
It's the Get Fresh line live in LA for plenty of people with plenty to say. Oh, it's something happening, or it's something going on. Call it in the evening or at the breakup dawn. Everybody who's anybody's on this line. This is the freshest party line you'll ever find. If you want a good time, we've got many. It's only $2 plus toll, if any.
I told that story to Chuck Brown when the late Chuck Brown of Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers.
Bustin' Loose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, when I was living in the dorms at Bakersfield College, we got a lot of these football players who were recruited from Washington D.C. and so they used to bring a bunch of cassettes. Mm-hmm. And there was hey man, you got to hear what is this sound? Go-go music, man. It's just one thing. Once it starts go-go music, just goes on. So the dorms are just blaring, and I'm loving it, man. I'm like, who is this? He goes, that's Chuck Brown. I mean, Bustin' Loose Chuck Brown, because it doesn't sound, it kind of sounds like him, but it doesn't. He goes, oh no, man, this is what's going on. This is what's going on in DC. Mm-hmm. And then I heard him on an interview, and actually I called into the show. Mm-hmm. It was streaming, but I was able to do it. Figure out the time. I got to talk to Chuck Brown. Brown. And I said, hey man, I got these tapes, and we used to get them. And he was all, oh yeah, and he was like, well, when are you guys gonna pay me for all those bootleg tapes?
Exactly.
But rest in peace, Chuck Brown. All right, so KDAY. KDAY's role in the history of radio, it's too big to tell in obviously in one show. So let's just focus on some particular chapters, namely your role in the introduction of rap and hip hop music in Los Angeles. Just jump right into that.
When I first got to LA, there were 5, I guess you could say urban, back then we just said black radio stations, and 1580 KDAY. There is a difference between the KDAY that's on now. They're 93.5, but 1580 KDAY, which is a station, an AM station, of course, that I was going to go work at. And I knew going in that they were up for sale. And so I said, well, do I really want to go? And they says, well, if you come and work for us, when we do sell, you will get a year's pay. We'll pay you for a whole year. Mm-hmm. And then I was looking at all the money because it's a union station. I said, well, okay. At least till I got my first check. And then I realized with California taxes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was like, oh, low. So
this ain't Texas.
When I came here, I had met with the general manager and the music director. It was never proposed to me before I came here that they wanted me to help in programming because I've learned programming from day one. Mm-hmm. I've been in radio 48 years, and I know that. But they said, you got any ideas? Because we just can't, quite figure this out. And I said, sure. And I said, give me a couple of days because I really didn't.
Yeah.
But
figure it out.
It was opportunity. And so when I went home, because my mother, I lived in her apartment behind her house. She had a couple of rental apartments. I stayed in one of them, and it was in South Central. Every night you hear the ghetto bird and the gunshots and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I just opened up my window. Bam. That's all you heard was, Sugar Hill Gang, Curtis Blow, Run DMC, all of the rap music is all you heard. And so I'm like, so I said, I listened to the dial. I said, why is radio not doing this? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I went back to him the next day and I said, hey, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to start playing rap music throughout the day. And they looked at each other like, that's probably not a good idea. So they didn't let me do it. The next day, Ed Kirby, who was the general manager there, we all knew because Ed, would tilt back a few at lunch. We all knew that if you're going to ask him something, ask him after noon. And so I asked him the next day in the afternoon. I said, come on, man, you got to let me try this. I really think that, this could work and blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, all right, we're going to try it. Mm-hmm. But we're going to monitor it real closely. And I said, what do you got to lose? You're last place. Let's let me try this. And within 90 days, we had jumped from number 5 to number 2 in the market.
Wow, that's amazing.
And mind you, I had to give them my list every week because they wanted to see what I had going on. But
Looking at those names of the groups, who is this?
I knew I was on the right track.
Yeah.
And we not only did that, but I got off into the city and started seeing what was going on. And I found a new music that was evolving called freestyle music. A lot of people do not know that it got its start on radio at 1580 KDAY.
Yeah.
You know, I started meeting, Trinier and Lisa and Taps and all those other names that people, probably know the song but don't know the artist, but started playing that on there. And then I combined that with the best of R&B, and that's 1580 KDAY. That's how I got formed.
Uh-huh.
And there was, am I going on too long, man? Because I can.
Oh no, please no. Yeah. I'm sitting there like I'm just listening intently, like, because I'm like, yes, I want to know more. Please, by all means.
My sister had invited me to this big venue at the sports arena in LA. I guess it held about 10,000 or something at that time. And she said, "Come on, let's go to Uncle Jam's Army's thing." I said, "Uncle Jam's Army? What is that?" "Hey, you gotta come. So I said, all right, cool. So I went over there with her, and we walked in, and I had never in my life seen just thousands of kids in there just tearing it up, man.
Yeah. Now, was this, because I do remember those festivals, like I said, like we seeked it out as, the Budweiser, the Superfest. So you saw, it was like Houdini, Run DMC. Was it one of those, or was it strictly like an LA thing? Because Uncle Jam's Army is a West Coast thing.
It was strictly DJs. Later, it evolved into what you're saying, but it was strictly DJs. I'd never seen 10 turntables up on stage, and Egyptian Lover and Bobcat, Battle Cat. I mean, it was unbelievable, and the place was jumping. And so I said, this is what we got to do at KDAY. We got to tie into this energy. So I waited to meet the promoter, a guy named Roger Clayton, late Roger Clayton. And I said, hey, man, we got to tie this in with KDAY and what we're doing over there. And, we could really help each other. And he just started laughing. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, does it look like I need a effing radio station? And I looked at his crowd. I said, well, I guess not. But I'm one of those people that if you don't get down with me, I'll just, we'll go heads up. And so he didn't want to get down.
Yeah, so you brought the ideas, and eventually it broke through. Now, obviously this is way before the internet, so finding out information about anything that could possibly be happening on the East Coast, like were you trying to find out, okay, if we're going to do this station here in Los Angeles, I can see the potential here. I'm seeing the vision. I got to make a move right now. Were you trying to find out if anything was happening on the East Coast to see, like, is there any sort of reference point, or what do you got?
Well, that was one of the things about me as a person is that I didn't care what coast you were from. Of course, I always felt like a programming strategy would be that I would play a mediocre local person any day of the week, because they're going to go tell 100 of their family members to listen, and then they're going to tell 100 of their friends that their cousin's on the radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Grassroots.
Create a snowball kind of thing. But, pretty much everybody that came from the East Coast at that time came through us, Russell Simmons and, some of the names you probably wouldn't know, Tom Silverman, Fred Mineo. There was a lot of relationships that evolved, and they were shocked that they had a West Coast outlet. And so
when you mention Russell Simmons, so Def Jam is kind of like not really in it's kind of still in its infancy, but it's already beginning to break through. Rap music, hip hop singles are starting to be more accessible to the people.
Let me tell you something. If it wasn't for me, Def Jam wouldn't be here. Let me explain why.
Okay.
Russell Simmons and I created quite a relationship. He had come to me, and I mean, he was almost in tears. He's like, dude, because I helped him. I played his first record, LL Cool J's I Need a Beat. And it was exploding. He just couldn't, get it pressed up enough. And he says, man, I'm about to go out of business. I said, what do you mean? It's like selling like crazy. What are you talking about? But I didn't understand that record distributors, even though you may have been selling a ton of records, you don't get paid until you come out with another record that seems as strong, and then they'll go ahead and pay you for the other one. He's like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, if you can think of anything, anybody I could borrow the money from, whatever the case may be. And so I was talking to Roger Clayton of Uncle Jam's Army. We had, made peace. And he says, you know what? I got a guy you should talk to. And his name is Leor Cohen. Leor is doing this club over there. It was a club in LA called Water the Bush, which is a whole nother story. And I said, okay. So we hooked him up.
Yeah.
Leor had plenty of money in his family. Russell had plenty of records for sale. They banded together.
Yeah.
And that's where that all started.
Yeah, that name, Leor Cohen, you hear it on a lot of the history of hip-hop stories. And, of course, if you listen to The Gas Face by Third Base, Leor Cohen does not get the gas face, or maybe he got the gas face. I've got to go back
They
and
gave
listen
me
to
the gas face.
Yeah.
Third Base, or not, I don't know. I don't know what that was about. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, it happens, but it's because at what point did you know that your name was becoming a force? And I could tell that you're a very humble person, but you're trying to make things happen. You gotta hustle, man. You're looking at lasting power in a new market, new frontiers of radio, and that people are watching you because I'm sure that they wanted to imitate what you had already started to establish. And then once you get to that point, then it's like, I got to keep it fresh. I got to keep it fresher than everybody else. At what point did you know I got something? And then how did you talk to, maybe the suits? I'll use that term, the suits, to say, hey, you guys got I need some support here. Otherwise, we're going to lose this.
I think radio is constantly evolving, and so you have to constantly change and constantly grow and constantly be out in the streets, constantly talking to the youth, because the youth are always going to pick out for you what the next thing is. Just like the new rap that's out there now. It took me a minute to understand. I do now where the youth are coming from with it, but I've always told people the same thing that I was telling them back then. Is like, when they were putting rap down, I was like, you've got to sit down and listen to the lyrics. You got to talk to the kids and understand where they're coming from with this, because it's not bad to say I don't like a certain type of music. It's okay. There's certain songs that I know you're not going to like. Me, I'm a music lover. I like country, jazz. There's just not any type. I mean, I try and understand it all.
Yeah, because you and I. And we're not going to talk about our age, but I'd say we're kind of like contemporaries. We're kind of peers, right? And talking shop is that the radio that we grew up in, it was kind of formatless. So you would hear like an artist like Glenn Campbell, and then you'd hear the Jackson 5 right after it. So we grew up with kind of a well-rounded appreciation and musical education. So we could see, well, maybe this isn't for us, but you know what? Let's see when you talk about the tastes of the people. Now, rap music, what was, without trying to name off too many names, because I know, so many names. When you were saying Trinier, Lisa, okay, so we know them. But how many songs were kind of in the rotation at the time, even at the peak? Because, how many songs were on?
We didn't play a lot of music. I come from a programming philosophy of tightness. What you hear here in Bakersfield on Precious 957 is probably the loosest I've ever gotten, and it's still too tight for that format. Whereas with Fire 1039, it's a little bit tighter, kind of similar to what we used to do. But I tend to believe that what you are hearing here in Bakersfield, I'm going to try and expand it, because I think that the people that are playing these all rap formats have alienated like some of the other rap, and just build it back up.
Because they're not just one type of rap music now.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're gonna hear firsthand here in Bakersfield the development over the next few months, and it won't take me long after I understand exactly what you guys like here in Bakersfield. You're gonna hear an expansion, and you're going to be like, oh my God. And then when your friends come into town, they're going to be like, oh my God, I wish we had this.
Yeah.
I promise you. You watch.
Excellent. Okay, I want to go back to the little memories. Okay, so, you know, we've already we've given a history of KDAY, and that could be a whole other show, like I said, but I want to talk about some of your memories. Okay, so rap music, hip hop goes from like, you know, good times partying, breakdancing, and then I do remember the flip when the introduction of gangster rap came in, and of course the reaction from everybody, and of course you're at the epicenter of all that, you know. What was going on? You know, what are some of the things that you can remember from that time?
What I can tell you, and this is probably true for a lot of careers, is that when you're in it, you're not thinking like that. I'm not thinking like we're creating history here, like we're changing the world. I wasn't thinking like that. We were just having fun. I was working from 9 a.m. till 3 a.m., literally. I mean, every day, because I was having so much fun. We were enjoying it, and we were, you know, just... I was just getting exposed to a lot of different types. And so in my mind, I've been very good. If I understand the city and what they're into, I can mold a station that everybody can relate to. And so that's what I was doing, was absorbing. You know, I went to, you know, skating rinks.
Yeah.
I went to gay clubs. I went to Hispanic clubs, black clubs. Some I probably shouldn't have went to, but.
Were you talking about Water the Bush? I mean, of course.
Well,
yeah,
Water the
Florentine
Bush.
Garden. Yeah, Florentine Gardens. You have quite a lot of those places. What were some of the other names of some of those clubs that you remember?
Florentine Gardens. I knew that guy. I think he still owns it. And he came in the booth one day because there was a lot of black people in there, and he said, "Take that end music off."
Oh,
he said it in front of me. I'm like, "No, you didn't." You know. So there was a lot of, still is today. If a club is getting too many, blacks in there, they change the music up.
Yeah,
it's always been like that, but. You know, and then when the club starts losing money, then they bring in black promoters.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, they always say, "Well, I guess it's time we start spinning hip hop." You know, but it's like, let me ask you about this. Like, okay, so gangster rap starts coming in. Now you start seeing like a lot of young moguls popping in, releasing their own records. They're like, you know what, we don't even need the record labels anymore. You start seeing, of course, you know, if you've seen, everybody out there listening, of course, if you've seen Straight Outta Compton, you already know that story, and it's been passed down. It's like, I could talk to my son. My son's already in his 30s, but when, you know, Boys in the Hood came out, I was just graduating out of high school. And now, like, he's, "Dad, you ever heard of Eazy-E?" And I'm like, "Of course I've heard of Eazy-E." Now, I know that particular record was the game changer in Los Angeles, and still today, I mean, even Megan Thee Stallion has covered, I mean, it's covered everything. But you were right there when it was released. And I'm sure you, like you said, we talked about Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, you know, what can you tell some stories about that particular era when Boys in the Hood comes out?
Well, I'll just tell you like this. Straight Outta Compton was, I would say, about 80% accurate in what it portrayed. I did not know. I know that they had interviewed me like 4 years before it came out, but I did not even know that I was being portrayed. And
so I thought for sure you might have been brought in as a consultant. No?
No, they asked me a bunch of questions.
Oh, okay.
And then at the very end, one of my friends hits me up and says, "Oh, you need to sign these papers because they're going to use you in the movie. They're going to portray you in the movie." And I said, "What?" And then they showed a video, which is actually me, but no one ever sees it because it runs during the credits. But, you know, that was an honor, but it was about 80% accurate. Now, let me get down a little bit more of the truth. Eazy-E, the Eazy-E part was not accurate. Jerry Heller was not accurate. Now, Eazy is one of, if anybody ever asks me who is the coolest guy in hip-hop, Eazy-E, by far. Not just because he and I did a triple platinum record together called Radio, but a lot of people don't know of all the stuff he used to do for the community. He used to get busloads of kids out of Compton and quietly take them to Magic Mountain and spend the day at Magic Mountain, spoiling them, buying them everything that they asked for. And then when they got back, gave them all kind of school bags full of, you know, stuff to work with and stuff. He never wanted, I said, "Easy, you should publicize that." He said, "Nah, this is my thing. This is my joy." He didn't want to share it. Dre, the whole Arabian Prince, Clientele, DJ Yalla. They weren't gangsters. Here's where that came from. The gangster part is the fact that a lot of their friends and cousins and blah 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 were gangsters, and so they would sit there and tell them the stories. Ice Cube is one of the best hip hop writers in my mind. He's one of the top 2. He is that good, but he wasn't living in the hood. He got bussed out to the valley, and he grew up pretty decent neighborhood, but just like I'm able to absorb what's going on in the streets and program it on the radio, they were able to absorb what's going on in the streets and put it on vinyl at that time. And so we became friends. I used to go over to the studio, which was Lonzo's garage. Lonzo and I talk all the time still, by the way. But we'd go over there, and we did a Christmas song together, which is on YouTube if you guys want to hear it, because the quality, I don't know what happened to the original. The quality is terrible. But we did a few things together. We did a club called Dudos, which was where we launched our relationship with, we had New Edition there performing live. And, because of my connections, we had all kinds. I mean, if you came out with a hit record, you had to come and do something for KDAY.
Yeah.
Our street team consisted of LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Ice-T, NWA. I mean, we had the most powerful street team. Visit schools almost every day to go and do shows for them.
Yeah. So all the East Coast artists, it's obviously we have to go to KDAY. So they went straight to KDAY.
You had no choice. We were the only ones in town.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we built a great relationship with these people. But I never ever, going back to what you originally asked, never ever felt like we're doing this, we're doing that. No, we were just we really were just having fun. We didn't know that we didn't know.
Yeah. Well, so somebody wants to break a record, they're hot off the press. They're like, I got to take this to Greg Mack. I got to show it to him. Like, how many sessions, how often were you getting, pushed to, you got to check out this record and hopefully it makes the cut?
Every week.
Yeah.
We would have weekly music. I'd allow people to come by. I had an open door policy. You can come by any day of the week. Many times, if you had a good record, before you even left the station, it was in rotation.
Yeah.
I was very, very proud of that day of when I was doing all of that. I never took payola. Still to this day, have never done it. That's something I take a lot of pride in.
Yeah.
If you had a decent record, I'm gonna play it. And these guys know that. They know, and once they hear, that I'm programming, this station, they're gonna be reaching out. But we didn't know that this would be a format that is now heard all over the world. In every country, you can see people playing hip hop. And I think sometimes I do look back at it and say, wow.
Yeah.
But I've never gotten, I do interviews and, I get a few accolades, but no one's ever, it's kind of like, when you see a black man invented this, a black man invented that. It's usually like 50 years after he died that he invented it. And I says, well, because I was telling my mom, I said, well, when I'm no longer here, 50 years after that, they're going to say, Greg Mack started this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's just the way it is.
Yeah, but everybody out there listening, all you have to do is look up Greg Mack. You can look up Greg Mack, the Mack Attack, and there's some stories out there. But I think the full story has not been told. I mean, have you ever thought about putting together a book?
It's in the works. Book. I'm working with a pretty big movie company right now. We're developing a series that will tell the whole story. And the ultimate goal is to get a film in the movie theaters. And the book, I've got an agent wanting to take me out on tour now, but I haven't had time to rewrite the book. I've rewritten it 10 times, and I'm just not happy with it. And so I'm gonna take a few days off and try and knock it off.
Yeah. What about archival footage of you from back in the day? Do you have a library access?
Now, there's a story by itself. I had a friend of mine. Well, we're still friends. I had the foresight to record a lot of these things because we used to do live broadcasts with all of these people that you guys grew up and loved. And I said, take my camera and shoot this. Might want to do something with it later. I don't know. So he was shooting up everything. I mean, all kinds of footage.
Very smart.
I got, not exactly. I got busy. I got busy with my career because a lot of people don't know that I've owned several radio stations, sold several radio stations, lost a couple, But, I went through all of that. And then one day I said, let me look back on that because I always felt like if you look back, you lose sight of going forward, But I said, this story needs to be told. Because it's creating. I got to tell you a real funny one in a minute, but I reached out to him and I says, well, dude, send me that tape because I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with it. He says, what tape? I said, the tape that I had you shoot.
Yeah.
He said, oh, I own that. I shot it, and I said, what do you mean you own it? So anyway, I called my lawyer up and he says, well, yeah, he shot it. And he owns it. I did not know that when you ask someone to shoot, you better go grab it.
Yeah.
We're good friends now, but I was pretty hot for a few years.
Yeah. Well, I remember the documentary that Cypress Hill put out, and they had the foresight as well to have their homie follow them around and start taping them back in those early days. Now I know Cypress Hill is, they had to go through KDAY. I mean, that's one of those essential LA groups. But, I could ask you, questions about all these different artists, but I got to ask you about, Tupac and Biggie Smalls. I mean, those are the two legends. Did you?
Never met Biggie. Tupac used to visit me all the time with when he was with Digital Underground. He'd come in the studio. For whatever reason, he felt the obligation to set up on the console and kind of spread out. And one thing that amazed me about Tupac was his wisdom. He seemed like he was way older than his time. And he asked all the right questions. I was just shocked that he was so intelligent. Not that all rappers aren't, but he was very inquisitive about, my thoughts on certain things, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I always enjoyed him. When he'd come by, he probably came by 3 or 4 times when he was with Digital Underground. And I think once he went solo, but
one of the funnest concerts
cool
I've
guy.
ever been to.
Biggie I never met. I never got a chance to meet him.
Tupac, brilliant.
Yeah.
I love watching those interviews.
Real smart
Just
guy.
so smart. Him and his mother. Rest in peace. What a life.
Yeah.
Now navigating through, the things that we saw on Straight Outta Compton, things we knew, like you read about stories about Suge Knight and all the West Coast, East Coast stuff. How are you, Greg Mack, navigating through that so that you don't get pulled into anything?
Oh, those guys know that I'm too naive to know the politics. And some of it I know, but I keep it to myself.
Yeah.
And I've had run-ins. Probably some stuff you'll have to wait for the book.
Yeah.
Only because I didn't get caught up in, the day-to-day drama. I've always been a positive person.
Yeah.
And when bad things happen, I was like, well, hey, and just go on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, gotta stay positive. That's why I know when I finally got to hear your voice on the phone, I was like, oh man, I know it's Greg Mack. I already get the good vibe. I knew, because every once in a while you get to, about a person, somebody who has a really strong history, solid. And when you finally meet them, you don't want to be disappointed because it's just like maybe in your mind you've kind of elevated them to a status like, maybe they don't want you to do. But myself as a music fan, as a music historian, as a journalist, we would love to know that when you finally get to meet that individual, they live up to that. So I just want to tell you that I was real at ease when I finally when you say, hey, Matt, just give me a call. Why don't you, call me up. We'll get this all taken care of. And then why don't you come over to the station? I was like, all right, All right. Everything's gonna be cool.
That is so true. I got to the point where I didn't want to meet groups because I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I remember the first time I met Diana Ross, and I made the mistake of going up to Diana, and I said, Diana, I just love everything about you. I love your music. And she got upset and walked off. And so the guy from Motown, he walked over. He says, you can't call her Diana. I said, what do you mean I can't call her Diana? Mm-hmm. He said, no, you call her Miss Ross. Yeah. You call her Miss Ross. And so I walked back over. I said, Miss Ross, I'm sorry. Oh, hi, Greg. How are you? I'm like, oh, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I bet you got stories about to be meeting all those legends yourself, the people that you looked up to. Well, you know, hip hop just celebrated 50th anniversary. You're obviously a big part of its evolution and reach, you know. I mean, I just got to ask you again, and you've kind of already talked about this, but just kind of as we get close to wrapping this up, because I would love to have you on the show again. So I just want this to be kind of a first time. And
I'm going to have to start charging you. This first one is free, brother.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you need an editor on your book, you know you can come to me, and I will go seek out research, and it'll be all positive. You know, how does it make you feel? To looking back, because I brought back some memories, kind of, you know, sparked some things that maybe you forgot about because you're so busy working, and you're living in the now and you're thinking about the future. How does it make you feel to look at some of the things that you've been a part of? One of the architects.
You know, I look at it and it doesn't feel like I ever thought it should or would. I don't think that I'm done yet. I think that there's something that I've got to finish. And I think a lot of that is just getting the story out there, the truth about how I really created, you know, the hottest format in the world, and all of the ups and downs that I had to deal with, mostly personal stuff. You know, having been married, well, I'm on my fourth one now. You know, I started in radio at age 15. I've been doing it for 48, going on 49 years. Mm-hmm. So you do the math. And I would just like to do it probably 2 or 3 more years and then go enjoy life. Because what people don't understand is by playing at the level that I'm playing at, it is literally a minimum 15-hour-a-day average job, at least 6 days a week. I do try and take off Sundays, but it's not always possible. But it is very time-consuming, and you got to have a passion. When you have a passion for something, you will succeed, okay? You may fail going into it, but if you want to succeed on anything in life, you got to have a passion. Because when you have a passion for it, it's not work, you know. I don't feel like I've ever worked, you know. I'm just blessed to be doing something that I enjoy. I don't. This is not work. This is fun. Hanging out with Matt Munoz. Come on.
Yeah. Oh man. Feelings likewise. I'm lucky, man. You know, I feel like, you know, I've heard people. I've interviewed some artists and say, yeah, you know, when I got to meet these people, man, I felt like I was just sitting there listening to Babe Ruth talk, and I'm like, you know what? I'm right here, the equivalent of Hank Aaron. Right here, I'm looking at this legend. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Use legend. I'm looking at this amazing talent right here, you know, and we could keep on talking about this, but where could people hear you if they wanted to hear Greg Mack on the radio?
You can hear me on Precious 957. You're listening to me right now on Fire 103.9. Yeah. I do still do a radio show in Los Angeles on a station called 94.7 The Wave, and I have a syndicated show, the Greg Mack Show, which airs in like 30 cities, 3 different countries, and you know, that's enough.
Yeah. Do you get people reaching out from across the pond? You know.
Oh yeah. I quick story. I was talking to Egyptian Lover the other day, and he was telling me a story because he does a lot of touring overseas. And he said, man, we are huge in Germany, you know, because he goes over there and does shows a lot. I said, really? I said, you mean you are huge? He said, no, let me tell you. So apparently someone recorded 1580 KDAY back in the day, and they recorded several hours, and so they play it over and over in Germany. So a lot of people knew who I was. Yeah. He said, you need to come. He said, they would listen to me do my mixes and stuff. It made me a celebrity over here. So as you can see, it continues. And so that made me happy to know that I have fans there from something I did back in the 80s. You know? Yeah.
And I also want to add this in there, that when you talk about the people that have been in the industry, the people, the history of music that have given other people opportunity. I do know this is that you gave two of our homeboys from right here in Bakersfield their shot
Baker
at the
Boys.
big time. The Baker Boys, Eric and Nick Vidal, who, if
Great
you're from
guys.
Bakersfield and you're from those early days, you remember the Vidal's nightclub where we all went. Everybody from Early Mart, Delano, Wasco, Shafter, all the country towns. We came into Bakersfield, went to the Bakersfield Inn, which is no longer there on Union Avenue, right there downstairs. And that's where we were introduced to freestyle music, to hip hop. The first time we heard the show, Dougie Fresh. I can look at in my mind right now and tell you where I was, and it was because of the Baker Boys. Now, when they grew too big for Bakersfield, they went to LA, and it was Mr. Greg Mack who gave that opportunity. You know, and I don't want to go into another long one because I know I can keep you in here. But what can you tell me about those two brothers?
The Baker Boys, you know, they had come to me. They were trying to get their DJ skills together, and they ended up working for me at a station I used to own at that time, which I ended up selling to Art LeBeau. But that's where they got their start on radio, even though it was a weekend thing. However, my DJ Tony at that time had produced, Kid Frost. La Raza and Mellow Man Aces, Mentirosa. He was on a hot streak, but they wanted to learn, from what at that time in the streets was the best. And so Tony, started building a relationship with them. And that's, I'll let them tell, how much that affected what their skills are now. But those guys are just talented, have always been talented, always will be. Baker Boys are the bomb.
Yeah.
And, the other guy that we have on fire here, that's starting Monday. I'm not sure when you're airing this, but Ed Lover. So it's going to be a star-studded lineup on Fire. I'm really excited about that. A lot of these people that I've grown up working with.
Yeah, it's still, the visions are still right there. They're still popping up in your head.
Yeah.
Like I said, when the Baker Boys, when we started hearing how big they were getting in LA, it all has to come back with, somebody has to give you that bump. So I tell you, as a Latino, as someone who is a musician and someone who has followed the Baker Boys' career, has been friends with them with their family, with the whole Vidal family for so many years, that time period was such a wild and crazy time period, the billboards and all that stuff. And they're still on the, everybody's out there rolling with the punches of radio and all that implies. But, like I said, thank you so much, Greg, and we're honored to have you and excited to have you here in Bakersfield on Fire 103.9 and Precious, and like everybody out there listening, I'm sure you got a dream, you got some visions, you got to follow the lead of Greg Mack, and you got to just make it happen.
Have the passion.
Exactly. It's so much to do, but thank you so much, Greg.
All right, my friend.
Hold it now, wait, hold it. Hit it!
You asked some good questions. I
Thank
think
you.
that the time, and I was hoping I would get to answer, but I'm not, that I knew that something special had happened with what we did. I had bought a radio station, me and a couple of friends of mine. Actually, one of them was Dr. Dre's lawyer. He was one of my investors. And we had bought a station up there. And so I'm there meeting with a couple of clients, because they wanted to spend a lot of money with us. They didn't have anything like that up there. And so we're sitting there talking at this restaurant. And so this black guy comes in, his white girlfriend. And so he just starts staring at me, and I'm like, the hell? And so then he walks over and he gets down on his knees. And so my clients are like, the hell? He said, I know you're Greg Mack. What in the hell are you doing up here? You just don't know. I idolize you, blah, blah, blah. He just kept going on, and his wife, or whatever she was, was pulling his shoulder. He said, do you mind if I kiss your feet? And so he started leaning over to kiss my feet. I said, nah, dude, that's good. That's good. And so finally she's able to get him up, and she's pulling him away, and he just keeps staring, So the clients were like, who are you?
Yeah.
And so when they said that, I was like, you know what? We probably started something back there.
Yeah. Revolution.
Tripped me out.
Yeah.
Tripped me out.
Absolutely. Wow.
So that's when you know that when some guy is willing to kiss your feet, you feel like you might have accomplished something.
The Baco Tunes podcast with Matt Munoz. New episodes every week. And for the latest, be sure to follow us at Baco Tunes on Instagram. That's BAKOTUNES. And be sure to like us, rate us, comment at us, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back next time.
AM stereo, KDAY, Santa Monica, Los Angeles.
AM stereo, KDAY. We couldn't get out of here without our general manager, Ed Kirby, putting in his last 2 cents. So here he is.
The last time I can tell you all to go to work. And it's been, JJ and I have been here, I guess, standing in this room besides Mandy Laird, who moved on to corporate, the longest.
That's for sure.
16 and 17 years.
That's right.
Respectively. And this is a hard thing to say. But it's going to all change now, and it's going to be different. And the only thing we're sure of is it's going to change.
Take that.
And it'll be good for everybody, hopefully.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody that's been here. I want to thank our audience most of all. Without a young lady by the name of Susie, none of our crap would have gone on. Took care of Jack and the rest of us. I guess all you got to do is legal ID it and hit the button, JJ.
I guess that's it. Thank you, Ed.
Damn near put it on.
You, everybody.
Going to take it off.
Dig it. Dig it. Here it goes. This is KDAY, Santa Monica. It has been fun. Peace.
Yeah.